My name is Cathlyn For today, we'll teach you how to name alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes. First, we must recall what these are. Naming alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes Science Performance Task by Cathlyn, Quiliza, and Addison Onyate. What are alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes? An alkane is a single carbon bond and it uses the suffix "ane". An alkene is a double carbon bond that uses the suffix "ene". An alkyne is a triple carbon bond that uses the suffix "-ine". Now here are the table of prefixes that will be helpful later. These prefixes are used depending on the length of the carbon chain. Naming alkane. This is the example given. This is also an expanded formula. I will show you how to name this compound. Step 1. We must identify the longest chain. The longest chain will be the parent chain. This is the longest carbon chain containing 10 carbons. By the table that was shown earlier, the prefix for 10 is deca. That is the longest chain and you can also call it as a parent chain. If you can see, this chain has 10 carbons. The prefix of 10 is deca. It will now be called as decane. Step 2. Number the carbon chain. We have to number the longest carbon chain. In numbering the longest chain, we must start counting at the end where the nearest alkyl is. In the given, it shows that the nearest alkyl is found at the right. So we must have to count from the right to left and we want the lowest number in identity. Count the number of carbons. This example has 6 carbons. You will start to count here. And if we have 6, that means the prefix that we will be using is hex. Take note that this is now an alkene, so we need to use the suffix "-ine". We have now 6 carbons, that means we need to use the prefix hex. Since this is an alkene, we are going to use the suffix "-ine". We will now call this a hexene. The carbons. We now need to number the carbons. In numbering them, we must start at the end where the double bond is the nearest. This is the nearest double carbon bond, so we can start counting here. So it looks like this when you start numbering. Step 3. Identify and name the double carbon bond. And now we have to identify and name the double carbon bond. The double carbon bond or the double bond is found at carbons number 1 and number 4. Since it has two double carbon bonds, we have to use the prefix di. The final name now for this compound is 1,4-dihexene. Now for example number 2. This compound is different since there are some alkyl groups found in this example. You can see that this example has alkyl. We have now 10 carbons. Again, the prefix for 10 is deca, but since this is an alkene, it will now be called a decene. We started numbering it from the right to left since the alkyl is closer to that end. You will start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So you will have 10 carbons. Second step is to identify and name the alkyl groups. Now that we found the alkyl groups and it is located in carbon 2, 5, and 8. For carbon 2 and 5, we identified that it is a metal. Since we have two metals, we have to use the prefix di. It will now be called 2,5-dimethyl. And for number 8, we identified that it is an ethyl. Step number 3. We have to identify the double carbon bond. In this example, the double carbon bond is located also in carbon 5. And for the last step, we just have to put it together. When naming this, they have to be in alphabetical order. Take note. The name for this alkene example will now be 8-ethyl 2,5-dimethyl 5-decene. Now let's go to naming alkynes. And finally, we have to name alkynes now. So this is the first example given. Step 1. Count the number of carbons. We have to count the number of carbons. This compound has 7 carbons. So let's start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Since it's 7, that means we are using the prefix hep. So since this is an alkyne, we'll be using the suffix "-ine". Now this will now be called a heptyne. This compound has 7 carbons, so we are going to use the prefix hep. Since this is an alkyne, we are going to use the suffix "-ine". And now it will be called as heptyne. Since it's 7 carbons and the suffix "-ine, you will just combine it and it will be heptyne. Step 2. Number the carbons. In numbering the compound, we have to start at the end, where the triple bond is closest to. So this end has the nearest triple bond, so we need to start numbering here. Step number 3. Identify and name the triple carbon bonds. Now we have to identify and name the triple carbon bonds. The triple carbon bonds is located at carbon number 1, number 3, and number 5. And the final name for this compound is 1,3,5-triheptine. What if the compound has a double bond and triple bond? In some cases, double and triple carbon bonds are found in one compound. So, how do we name it? Here is an example. Example number 1. We have to count the number of carbons, of course. We will start here at the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So, we have 9 carbons. That means we are going to use the prefix nona. Step 2. We have to number the carbons. In this case, we have to start at the end where the double bond is the nearest to. You can see, always start at the end where the double bond is nearest. Our priority is the double carbon bond. That means we have to start numbering from the left to right. You can see, the numbering starts at the left. Step 3. We now have to identify the double and triple carbon bonds. The double bond is located in carbon 2. Here. And the triple bond is located in carbon 5. So if you can see, this is the triple bond 1, 2, and 3. Step 4 is the last step. Now we have to put them together. We will show you the simplest way in naming this type of example. Now here are the simplest way to naming this example. Number 1. Start with the prefix nona since we have 9 carbons. Number 2. Place the number where the double bond is located. Number 3. Add the suffix in. Number 4. Repeat step 2 and 3 for the triple bond. And now this compound is named as nona 2,in,5-ine. Thank you for listening. I hope this tutorial was helpful and you learned some things from us.
Take note, for alkanes, suffix "-in" is used. For alkenes, the suffix "-in" is used, and the suffix "-ine" is used for alkynes. Here are the rules in naming alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes. Number 1. Find and name the longest continuous carbon chain. Identify and name groups attached to this chain. And number 3, number the chain consecutively, starting at the end nearest a substituent group. Step number 4. Designate the location of each substituent group by an appropriate number and name. Step number 5. Assemble the name, listing groups in alphabetical order using the full name. Step number 6. The prefixes di, tri, tetra, etc., used to designate several groups of the same kind are not considered when alphabetizing. Here are the 3 structures. First, we have expanded structure or expanded formula, condensed structure, and bond line or also known as skeletal structure.